Welcome back to In Business. I am Margaret Brennan. We are closing up shop in the European session in just a few seconds, 2 hours into the U.S. trading session. Scarlett Fu is here to talk us through where we stand.
Well, we're seeing a bit of a pullback finally after the big
Each other here because
he is not here today.
We're having tons of technical difficulties today.
Okay.
But I do understand that Judith is in Europe.
Oh, well, let's go to
Hello, welcome here to the second hour of In Business. I am Margaret Brennan. We are counting down to the close of trading in Europe, well into the swing of things here at home. Here are our top stories. Today's Bloomberg number is $1.89 billion. That's how much money Warner Brothers made at the box office last year, making it #1 among Hollywood studios for the third year in a row. Warner Brothers had hits like Inception, which brought in $292.5 million domestically. Harry Potter brought in $283 million. Take a look at what's happening to commodities right now. Here's what we're watching today on In Business. Of those who think Facebook is overvalued, well, a former investor in the social networking giant is among them. He just sold his stake a few weeks ago, and he'll join us at 10:15 to tell us why. Plus, John Boehner will be sworn in as Speaker of the House in just about 24 hours. We'll talk to the top-ranked D.C. analyst about his priorities and how much Republicans will be able to accomplish in the new Congress. At 11:15, BlackRock Vice Chairman Bob Dahl. He's unveiling his predictions for 2011, including his forecast for a third straight year of double-digit returns for stocks. All of that ahead in the next 2 hours, but first we do have breaking news on the manufacturing front. The number for U.S. factory orders has just hit the wire. You see at the bottom of your screen there for the month of November. We are seeing a big details ahead, but first our chief markets correspondent Scarlett Fu is with us for the hour, and she's going to start us off in our newsroom. So Scarlett, I'd ask you what's driving trading, but really there's no driving, it's treading.
Yeah.
When we come back in 2 minutes time, we're going to talk about Google. Perhaps
stop reading over the Christmas holiday.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'll have to follow through and actually read it now. That's a good teaser for that. But obviously, a lot happening in Australia in the past few days. My goodness. That's one of the odder video excerpts. Another tech giant wants to lighten the load in your wallet. So many want to do that. Well, Bloomberg has learned exclusively that Google is working on a service that will turn your smartphone into a credit card. Callie Carlin has the details. Callie? Scarlett, from tech to sports, one of the hottest stories in college football today is the question as to what Jim Harbaugh will do. This may be the best chance ever for the Stanford coach to make the leap to the NFL. Michelle Steele has more. Michelle? And the bet is that hopefully Chinese consumers will make up the difference on that, right?
Yeah, they've been, that's one of the...
For giving us some perspective on these sales figures. Stay tuned to Bloomberg for the rest of the auto numbers as they trickle in through the day. Stay with us because we're back in 2 minutes' time. Thank you very much, Laura. Several of the nation's biggest banks may be willing to settle regarding that huge foreclosure investigation. Dom Chu's out here in our newsroom covering the markets desk and these developments. So what are we going to hear? Exactly. Thank you very much, Dom. Meantime, the hunt is on for the precious metals known as rare earths. The U.S. is playing catch up, of course, China dominating that market. Scarlett Fu has the American, actually, who's trying to challenge China's dominance here. How is he doing that?
And the company is Molycorp. It's the owner of the world's largest rare earths.
All right, interesting to watch there. The trade battle, the investment angle.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Scarlett. Meantime, the spotlight shining on the House this week as Republicans vote to repeal the health care law. But in the Senate, there could be an even bigger vote. Bloomberg's chief Washington correspondent Peter Cook is in the Capitol with the details. Peter? Back of the envelope, not quite sure what some of those stakes have been watered down to or what bells and whistles they come with, but bottom line is a lot of profits being made. Meantime, I want to go to Washington right now and bring in Lizzie O'Leary, who has been crunching some numbers and taking a look at some of the issues confronting the 112th Congress, which officially begins tomorrow. So what happens in Washington when Congress reconvenes, Lizzie? Do we see all sorts of excitement and buzz for you? Goolsby's very strong words in characterizing that certainly got all of us talking. Lizzie, thanks so much. We'll check back in with you as work gets underway once again in Washington. Meantime, though, we're going to take a break. Goldman Sachs giving clients a chance to get in and buy Facebook. All Our next guest had a stake in Facebook, but has recently sold it. Thomas Heinemann is a co-founder of German advertising agency Schultz & Friends, and he now said Berlin. So, Thomas, did you sell your stake before or after this $50 billion valuation?
Just before, but it was
interesting to get to talk to you. We don't hear from Facebook investors all that often, such a tightly controlled private company there. Thank you very much for sharing your story. We're going to take a break here, though, and when we come back, we're going to talk about what Motorola stock, where we stand. That momentum has fizzled a bit. We have been pretty much flat on the broad market since the beginning of the 10 o'clock hour. We heard factory orders for the month of November did build rather than decline, as was expected. So we had seen a little bit of fluctuation right as that data crossed. Right now, we're just seeing fractional gains. The Dow Jones Industrial Average down fractionally on the NASDAQ and declines there on the S&P. We had seen the dollar gain earlier in the morning session, and energy prices are on the decline. And the pocketbook is going to hurt consumers. I mean, we've had Thomas Petrion from Bank of America, one of the first to call triple-digit oil. He said when it comes to gas, though, he doesn't expect it to go above $5 for the consumer.
$5.
Have only really been talking to optimists, though, these days. In these first trading days of the year, it seems like equity strategists can only see upside.
The question is, does
another worry to watch? Thank you very much, Mike McKee. Gigi Stone's standing by with a look at some of the other stories we're tracking. Gigi, much. Andy, thank you very much. Lizzie O'Leary joining us as well from Washington. More on the markets ahead. Transition from Hawaii back to the capital.
It is, but you know, people still talk about the third year of Obama's presidency being a good year for equities.
It typically is. What Andy LaPerriere from ISI says, you know, typically they look at a 17% gain in the S&P 500 in the third year of presidential term. He says maybe historical models may not hold true this time. It's not as clear of a bet this time.
But you know, they also did this research that showed that when there's a Democratic president and a Republican-controlled one of the chambers of Congress. Gridlock is good.
Particularly disoriented sunset. The loud noises cause them to decline. It's such an oddity, and it actually is getting picked up all over the world in terms of the news cycle.
It's hard to explain that kind of phenomenon.
Well, that's going to do it for us here on In Business. I'm Margaret Brennan.
And I'm Scarlett Fu.
And we'll see you back here tomorrow. More Bloomberg, more in the markets. In the hour ahead, Tom Keene takes over now.